I started making a mistake journal. That's the only thing that I got out of Kaplan. The instructor, I went to her and I asked her, I was like, hey, so when you took it, what did you do? And she's like, I didn't take Kaplan. So her first answer was like, I didn't take Kaplan, but I did make a mistake journal. So, I mean, that might help. That way you're able to see what your mistakes. And that was another question I had. I know we have like 5 minutes, but I feel like when I get into Kaplan, when I get into my mistake journal, I don't know how much is too in depth with like writing up, because it's a lot of time that I'm putting into like for like a question that's a mistake. But then at the same time, what's too much? Like, is there no such thing as too much because I got it wrong and I really need to get it?
That's an excellent question. I'm glad you raised it, because the review process is really the most important aspect of studying, and it's too often overlooked. Now, mistake journal is great, but I'd go beyond that. Not just your mistakes, but everything that gives you trouble, everything you have difficulty with, anything at all that you're confused by. So the mistakes are, I think of them as what you got wrong. But then there are also the questions where you were oftentimes down to 2 and you guess, and you only focus on the ones you got wrong, but there's still all those other ones you got right and you just got lucky. So if you consider those as well, you may actually double the number of questions that you have the opportunity to review and the opportunity to learn from. The real value in doing problems is in finding the areas that give you the most trouble so that you can hone in on those. And then yes, keep a journal, keep a running list of everything you've ever had difficulty with. And then when you're writing out your explanations, you asked, how much is too much? Is there a such thing as too much? It's a great question as well. And I'd say there really isn't a such thing as too much if you're articulating your thought process and where you went wrong. You want to look at every single answer choice that tempted you, that was wrong, and figure out what was tempting about it and what ultimately made it wrong. And then on the flip side, for the right answer choice, what pushed you away from it? What discouraged you from it? But what ultimately makes it right? And then, of course, if your issue was with the stimulus and not with the question stem, not with the answer choices, or maybe with the question stem instead, you want to look at what in the stimulus was confusing. How did they increase the difficulty level of what was happening in the stimulus? Or maybe if the question stem was worded in an unfamiliar or confusing way, what was the key word or key phrase in that question stem that you misunderstood? And how does it actually relate to a more familiar question stem type?
It's a good observation. I did not think of that like that. So I really appreciate that. That's a great tip.
Yeah, of course. This is what I would recommend for pretty much anybody who's looking to learn from their mistakes, which is really, I think, again, the most important aspect of your prep. Now, obviously, if you write out your own thought process for every single question you ever have trouble with, that'll take forever, especially if you're getting a lot of questions wrong or having trouble with a lot of questions. And so what I would say is maybe pick a handful of the most difficult questions giving you trouble and focusing on those.
Okay.
And at the same time, maybe you want to reduce the number of questions you're completing so that you can review in more depth. A lot of times students will do 2-3 timed exams a week worth of material, and there's not really enough time to do all those exams and to review them all in sufficient depth and work on your weak areas and review foundational materials. It becomes too much, even if you're looking to do 40 hours a week. And again, based on what I laid out for you, I think that 6 hours a day, 5 days a week, with some breaks in the middle if possible, is the most I would recommend. And so if that requires doing fewer exams, fewer practice problems, that's totally fine.